What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Like a Dragon. I finally played this thing. It took such a long time, both in like how long it's been since the game's been out, and also, yeah, I put some hours into this thing. Now, I didn't put nearly as many hours as I saw like the average amount of time, but I'm going to explain to you exactly what I did play, what I invested a lot of time in, and my overall thoughts, as you may or may not know. And we are on a channel where a lot of these videos, lay, but in the last maybe 10 months now, I have now completed the entire arc, the entire Yakuza 0, all the way through this game with being 7, right? I've played 8 games. I still haven't done Ishin, Judgment, and Lost Judgment. And actually Dead Souls, I believe, right, which was that zombie spin-off one. I will be playing those games, and I will be making videos, but I've experienced the vast majority of Yakuza or Like a Dragon in the past 10 months, and it's been, and I genuinely mean this, it's been the ride of my life. Like, I'm so happy that I did this, and this was a franchise that I've neglected and I've heard of, but I never gave the time of day, and I decided to jump in, and I'm a massive fan, and you have no idea how excited I am for Infinite Wealth. I think that game is going to be legendary. So, what about Like a Dragon? Well, this game took the franchise in a different direction, didn't it? Now, I have time because it's been so long, right, since this game came out. I saw all this stuff, and playing through these Yakuza games, I knew what I was getting into with this one, right? So you got the new character in Ichiban, right? You have even like new location. It's now turn-based. The entire style of the game is different, and that is extreme. I mean, that is the biggest thing with this game, is it not? In my opinion, the biggest difference with this game versus any of the others, and the thing we're going to talk about quite a bit in this video, is that turn-based gameplay, which, let's just start there. I really liked it. I really, really liked it. Gotta be honest, I don't know which I prefer. I just played, and actually I lied to you. I said I played 8 games. I actually played The Man Who Erased His Name. So 9. So I've done that. I just did that, right? That game just came out. So you go from the classic fighting of the Yakuza games, and then I go into this game. Now, technically, if you're playing them in order, right, you would have done this. Then you kind of go back to the past, literally, plug for the channel. You do that with The Man Who Erased His Name. You have the old style combat. And then now for Infinite Wealth, you're going back into the turn-based. For me, I'm staying there, right? It was turn-based. It's going to be turn-based. And they both have their strengths. I think what makes the turn-based so cool, in my opinion, is the character combinations and the powers. For doing a turn-based RPG, like, you got to have something kind of special. And to take the core of what Yakuza is and to transform it into this, like, there's no guarantee it works. But I think they did an incredibly good job. Like, these people have powers, right? Like, even Kiryu had. And, the way they fuse that into the gameplay, I think, is extremely good. And it keeps going. The fact that there's jobs in this thing, and the jobs have their own abilities and their own weapons, and literally their own style. So you think you're, playing with one, and you think you're enjoying it, and then you say, oh, did you know there's like 6 other jobs these people can have? And then you change, and it changes things so dramatically. Changes things when you swap out characters. Your play style is going to be different. Maybe you're more aggressive. Maybe it's more magic-based. Maybe it's more healing-based. Now, I'm kind of describing any kind of turn-based RPG, but again, the important part is they're taking what we knew from this and infusing it with turn-based. So you're doing a style that we've played for decades upon decades, a classic style, but with the Yakuza kind of flair to it. And I think they nailed it. I would say, like, my main issue, let's just say my main issue, way too much fighting. Way. And I think I complained about this back in like the Kiwami 1 and 2 days. I believe so. Early on in the Yakuza games, there were games kind of in a row where it just felt like you couldn't walk more than 15 feet without getting attacked, right? I think it was earlier on, even though Kiwami, being the remakes, right? But then I feel like they kind of fixed it, where if you didn't want to fight, there were, you could get out of it, and there weren't that many enemies on screen. I don't remember which game, but I'm positive there was a game where I felt the change, where it's like, yeah, they had to have heard something, right? They had to have heard, oh, there's way too much of it, and then now you can get out of it. In this game, fighting's necessary, which we'll talk about, because my dear God, fighting is necessary. Grinding, leveling up. Again, maybe classic RPG. I don't know how well that works now, though, but you need to do it. But regardless of that, there are still way too many times walking down the street. In fact, there's sometimes where an objective, main mission, side mission, whatever, will be in the middle of a street, and there's no way around it, right? You could walk on the other side, on the sidewalk. The enemies are still going to get to you, and you're going to have to fight. And even if you fight enemies drastically lower than you, trust me, I did, the game isn't very nice to you when you do the running away. Oftentimes it'll fail. Oftentimes you cannot run away, even if the enemy is lower than you. So that part specifically I didn't like. And then I will be honest, grinding, and this is tough, grinding some of the time I did not like. I felt that, and I've said this to a friend of mine, in past Yakuza games, you really didn't have to. In fact, the man who erased his name, Kiryu, was not all that powerful, by the time it got to the end and when you're fighting the final bosses. In many of these games, when you're notoriously fighting on the rooftop of whatever building it might be, I was really never all that powered up. Because, I've said this before, Yakuza 0, I did a lot of side stuff. Then I kind of stopped. Then I was playing these games primarily for the story. I would do a handful of side stuff, but that's it. Right? I was playing them back-to-back months, and it was just too much. Now, for this game, again, you have to do a lot of this stuff. You have to grind. And I will say, the battle arena. The battle arena is pretty fun. Different enemies. The variety is absolutely there. Again, when you're swapping out allies and stuff, and you're constantly leveling up, well, it becomes, more fun, right? Because you have new things to work with. But, when you're really grinding, and I guess in this way, I mean, what about when you're not leveling up? What about when you're walking on the street and you'd have to do 60 street fights to level up, right? When you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s of levels, right? Well, to me, they're not fun, right? Because the enemies are all the same. There's not variety because of the situation you're in. And then you'd have to fight these guys. I was exaggerating before. You'd realistically say to get from level 50 to 51, you really would have to fight 25 groups of these people in order to level up, maybe even more. So to, have to go through the same thing over and over, it becomes very repetitive. And I would actually say it becomes very repetitive in the same way that it normally would. It's just a different fighting style. But it would also be annoying in the other Yakuza games where it's well, I don't want to, just button mash and do these things and throw them and all that. I'm where I'm at, I don't want to fight. And it's similar feelings here. But the dungeons, the battle arenas, there are some really good moments. Now, is the game unfair at times? Oh, let me tell you something. Let me tell you a few things, okay? I was warned about, and this is spoilers because this game has been out for so long and we do have to talk about some spoiler topics in order to get my thoughts fully on this game. So here we go. The Majima-Saejima fight I knew about, okay? I never saw cutscenes. I never saw what it would actually be. And I can tell you, I loved every second of it. So the cutscenes, just seeing those two and just their banter with Ichiban, really, really good stuff, elite stuff. I didn't know how the fight would go, but I had heard that this is famous. This is everywhere on the internet of the jump in levels, and that you need to be at least a level 50 when you're fighting these guys. And if you do not grind and you're just naturally going through, you're going to be 35 to 38 if you're lucky. If you're having a good day, you'll be in the high 30s going into this fight just naturally if you don't think to grind. So I did. I knew to grind, so I did. I did the battle arena, and I got to level 52 or so when I was fighting them. And actually, I gotta be real, it was a breeze. Kiryu was the hard one. He was extremely difficult, and it only got harder from there. But those moments, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with. I love it in the sense that, does it make sense they're so much more powerful and you would need to grind? I think the answer is yes. I actually easily think the answer is yes. They are I don't know what they called, Yakuza Legends or maybe X Legends, whatever they literally refer to them as. So, it's almost meta, right? These people are the elite of the elite. They would wipe the floor with, a group of Ichibans, kind of thing. And in fact, when you fight these guys, you don't really defeat them, right? You beat them in the battle. Then when it goes to the cutscene, the Majima-Saejima one, it's almost a draw. Kiryu just kind of outright beats you, even though you beat him, right? So, it makes sense because these guys are legends and you've played as them before and you know how cool they are, right? So should they be so overpowered and over-leveled that you would need to... Yes. But for the game to not really tell you that, right? The game tells you one time recommended level. I think it's 15. Early on in the game, it says, the recommended level at this point is level 15. Do you want to go in here? The rest of the times they just ask you, hey, do you want to, there's no going back. Do you want to step into this door or whatever? And you say yes or no. They don't give you recommended levels. I really think that's such an easy thing to have just thrown in there where it didn't get me, but the game came out years ago. It's not like the game just came out a couple days and I had some sort of sixth sense to do this. I had heard about this stuff. My friend had told me. I looked online. I looked online a lot. I looked online to know to do the business mini game as much, or management, whatever you want to call it, right? As much as possible. We're going to talk about that. There are things you need to do in this game. And I guess maybe that is my biggest negative. You can call me crazy, but like when somebody tells me you have to do it, Alex, you need to do this, there's a part of me that immediately says, well, I don't want to. The business management thing is actually really fun, but telling me that I need to do it to get airy or to get, a lot of money, you get the most money you possibly can get from that mini game. So you want to do it as much as possible. It's fine and it's fun and I enjoy it in the moment, but telling me I need to do it makes me say, well, why do I have to? Why do I have to do something? And so that, and maybe in my own head, but that was, I would say, routinely the problem with this game. Was grinding fun? At times, yes. Actually, most of the times, yes. But like telling me I need to level up, and I think I was like 39, maybe 39. I think I was 39 when they introduced the battler, and they said, okay, you go to the Omi HQ, you fight these guys. I knew you fight these guys, right? So I was 39. I knew I needed to get to 50. I got to like 52. Like, it was fun, but it's also like, do I need to actually do something like that? And the communication from the game itself, very poor. You would not know that, and then you would get just destroyed, and maybe you'd cry. Maybe you'd quit the game. I don't know what would happen to you. You might not be able to come back from something like that, right? It's rough. Now, I mentioned the management thing. I want to talk just briefly about what I did in this game, right? So in terms of the side stuff, well, I mentioned, okay, Yakuza 0. I did a lot of side stuff, and then it kind of, died after that, right? I just did the main stuff. So for this game, because you kind of need to do all this stuff, I actually invested and did almost everything. I have maybe 5 side missions left, and I did a lot. Like, I was just racking them up. Any side mission I went to, they're pretty unique. They're pretty cool. I like them in this game. And again, I actually think the gameplay helps. Like, I actually think it was more fun because it's, you're still getting used to the gameplay. You're still leveling up. So to experience these different side quests and to do these different things, you're, all under the veil of the new gameplay. It felt better to me. So I did so many side stuff. I didn't do that much of like the kart racing thing, but I did do that. The business management, I got to 22, rank 22. So I didn't do all the way to 1. I do know that if you get to level 1, you get a very powerful ability that I could have I kind of need, and I'll get to that in a second, but I didn't get there. I think it's extremely good. It's tedious at times, absolutely, and the game kind of blocks you several times. But overall, it is really fun. You have some creativity there in what you buy and what you level, who you get in order to get certain people or in order to get pound mates, which you're absolutely going to need in some boss fights. You need to go out in the world. You need to recruit these people. You need to make a lot of money in this game. And there were some times I was a very poor boy. And then there were times I was a rich man with like 17 million yen. And I felt like I was on top of the world. And that's kind of how I, towards the end of the game. Now, I got to be honest. I want to come out and be very genuine here. I didn't beat the game. I got to the second to last with Tendo. I believe that's how you say his name. That fight broke me. That fight I died in, and if you remember that fight, you have to go kind of up the tower and fight, maybe like 15 different groups of enemies before you get to him, and to me, he was impossible. I'm like rank 58. I really don't know what the problem was. Maybe my group was wrong. Maybe their jobs were wrong, but I had a lot of trouble with him. I died, and then I didn't want to do the whole thing over. So my promise to you, I hope to go back and do it myself. However, I did go online and I just watched the rest of it, right? Because you fight him, you have a cutscene, very long, one more boss fight, and then it's the end of the game, and it's just like 25 minutes of cutscenes. So I watched that. In terms of the game itself, like the story, I haven't talked about that, right? You could be saying, well, Alex, what'd you think of Ichiban, and what'd you think, like, compared to Kiryu, compared to the other games? Okay, at times it's just as good. I would say overall, it's weaker. Just my opinion here. I think Ichiban is a very good character who has a ton of potential. I gotta remember, I've been with Kiryu, well, me, myself, I've been with him for like 10 months, right? But the community has been with him for like 20 years. He has multiple games. It's not really all that fair to compare a man who's had like 7, 8 games to him compared to a guy who's got 1. But I think it's an incredibly good foundation. I think Ichiban is a great character. My problem, I guess, lies in more of the story. I would say it took the story a long time to get going. I would say probably chapter 7 or 8 is when it really started to get serviceable. And then probably not even, maybe the Majima thing, like maybe chapter 12. There's just a lot of times where, and I guess it makes sense, right? Like, you're not the same situation as you are with Kiryu. You're more hot-headed. I actually think that makes Ichiban a more interesting character, at least right now, where it's like he's kind of what he'll do kind of surprises you. Like when he beats that man to a pulp and Kiryu stops him and says like, hey, I don't know if I trust you. Like, you're a man who was going to almost kill that guy and he already gave you the info. I don't know if I like, one or the other more, but like Kiryu would never do that. So to see a different person almost kill, and it's like, oh my God, like Kiryu would never do that, but we're not with Kiryu, right? That made him a very interesting character, and those story moments made it pretty cool. But overall, a lot of the story in this game revolves around politics, which, okay, all the games do. But this one, more about government, right? Like chairmans and seats at the House and people running for elections. It was way more of that than more about like the underbelly of the beast, right? This mafia, this Yakuza, which a lot of Kiryu's games were, right? This kind of struggle between the Omi Alliance and the Tojo, whatever it might have been, right? That's the heart of a lot of these games. This one was more about, well, there's this election, and then, it had Ichiban's kind of story. Why was he shot? Like, what was up with that? What's going on with Arakawa? And I think that's how you say his name. Now, that was a very interesting plot. The father, basically his dad, right? And the idea of putting these babies in these lockers, and there were 2 of them, which that one got me. Like, you're thinking, well, how is there going to be a twist here, right? Like, he punches the thing, he takes the baby. Like, is there a twist? What are they hinting at when they get to, like, chapter 13 and they really start to delve in? Oh my God, there were 2 babies. They mixed each other up. They each he took the wrong one, and then, the other ones were just, and it's like, oh my dear, like, what is going on? It was interesting. That stuff definitely was more interesting. I would say the relationship with the young master, right? And what happens to him at the end. Like, there are some very good moments, but a lot of it very much relied on almost like governing politics, which are to me, I mean, it's just not as interesting as some of the themes of the other games. I think specifically the Ichiban story threads of his dad, of the young master, of betrayal and trust, and who do I trust and what in God's name is happening. That was the most interesting stuff, not the more worldly themes that were happening kind of above him. And I think that's the push and pull you get with a character like him, where he was never all that high up. The family was not even all that high up. He got tied in with the Tojo clan right when Ichiban was in jail secretly and, made all these deals. But, like, you're not dealing with a patriarch. You're not dealing with one of these top guys. You're not dealing with these different factions fighting, and you're a legendary member of one, and you're stuck in, like, a war between them. Because you're not that character, you're not Kiryu in that sense, right? Then a lot of these problems are not really your own. They're more worldly problems because you're such an underdog. You're such a little guy. And again, his own personal threads, it worked because there are tons of moments where people underestimate you, or maybe you'll lose, or you have to come kind of from small beginnings and kind of go up, right? That happens a lot throughout this game because that's who you are. And so I think that part absolutely works. But there's a trade-off. There's a trade-off of, well, you're not going to feel as impactful to the main story because you're just not all that high up kind of in the world, right? And in that way, I think the game was weaker. But, I enjoyed the heck out of this thing. I really enjoyed it. Again, at some points it's weaker. At some points it's stronger. I put in, I think, 38 hours into this game, which is, again, it's a lot for me. Like, anytime a game probably gets 25 or 30 plus hours from me, you got to do something to get me in, and it absolutely did. But this game, I mean, the average sometimes for some people 60, 70, 80 hours, and completionist or doing, I believe, on the hardest difficulty, like there's definitely more to do, and you can sink hundreds of hours into it. I sunk almost 40. If I would have beaten the game, it would have been 40. And I enjoyed my time thoroughly. There are some fights, again, that really jump in difficulty that I was not appreciative of towards the end. I really just didn't get it, even though I was like the proper levels. I was getting schooled. Maybe that's more of a me problem because, again, that's kind of an RPG, right? You got to figure out your party. You got to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But I don't know. Sometimes it got me. Sometimes it didn't. But I'm very glad I played it. And I'm very ready for Ichiban to, let's see who his mom is. Let's figure that out. Let's, bring in Kiryu formally and fully and have these two kind of go back and forth. Well, let's freaking do this. So there's my thoughts on it. Like I said, there's a couple others, 4 other games in the franchise that I still have to play. We'll sprinkle them here and there over the next, maybe year or two. I think I need to take a break after Infinite Wealth, but remember, this obviously is a channel of older games. Infinite Wealth, obviously, I'll be doing a massive review on that game once I beat it, and it'll be on the main channel, just podcast now, okay? Let me know what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.